Live from the dynamic Playroom Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Doug Stewart Show. Yes, yeah. What's up with you? How you doing? Wow. The NFL season is over, and we crowned the new Super Bowl champion, the Seattle Seahawks. And I know I'm like a week late. I'm actually a week late today. It happened last week, Sunday. But I wanted to simmer a little bit. This great Super Bowl, I think it was a great game. A lot of people didn't think it was a great game because of the blowout. But I thought it was a great game, number one, because I was right. That's right. I was right. And a lot of people were wrong. A lot of people were very, very wrong. Listen, I think congratulations are in order. Congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks, a team that's been around. One of the newer teams in the NFL. I always thought the uniform was real cool back in the day. Shouts out to some of the great Seattle Seahawks players like Dave Craig and Jim Zorn and Steve Largent and Kenny Easley, a guy that would knock your head off. The first Kurt Warner. Shouts out to Kurt Warner, number 28. I actually wore number 28, my first number in Little League football. Cortez Kennedy. Eugene Robinson, who finished his career up here in Atlanta, and we know what happened in the Super Bowl in '98 with the Falcons. But just an incredible win, a great win for the organization. I mean, a solid win, a very solid win, and they did it with defense. First of all, Roger Goodell in the NFL, he's like Mr. Untouchable because this dude lucked out. They had great weather for the Super Bowl, which was one thing that was very interesting to me. Keep rolling the dice, though, on that and see how it turns out. The very next day, a ton of snow in the New York, New Jersey area, so they lucked out on that. I said it at the very beginning. I was right. I was absolutely right on this Super Bowl in thinking that Seattle would win and always going with defense over a exceptional offense. And the main reason that I picked Seattle was because of that defense. Because in sports, I think the great Mike Tyson summed it up perfectly, and people still use this quote today, and he said this probably 25 years ago. Everybody's got a plan until you get hit in the mouth. And that's exactly what happened with Seattle and Denver in this game. You had an offense that was all finesse, the quote-unquote greatest of all time offense. I'll get to that in a second. Against a very good defense. I don't know where I would rank them all time. But Cam Chancellor, the safety for the Seahawks, sent a message early with a big shot across the middle for the Denver receiver. And I think when you're an offense and you run a bunch of, I don't want to call it gadget plays, but you run a bunch of cute plays. That's the perfect word. When you run a bunch of cute stuff, a bunch of rub routes and pick plays where it's a lot of finesse. And that's what I mean when I say finesse. Finesse is, it's not smash mouth. It's not line up in the I formation and run the ball and do some play action. That's punch you in the mouth and using your athleticism and using the players that you have on your team. When you do a bunch of finesse with a bunch of, smoke and mirrors and rub routes and pick routes, when you get hit in the mouth by a team like the Seattle Seahawks, what are you going to do then? Your whole mindset changes. Oh, this was working all year long, and we didn't have anybody opposing us, and this was fine, and this was cute all year long, but now we got hit in the mouth. What are we going to do now? And so I think that's what the Denver Broncos ran into. And people talked about this Broncos offense, and you're watching the Doug Stewart Show. Statistically, the greatest offense of all times. And I always tell people, and I always said when we did the 2 Live Stews, that stats lie. Use your eyes. The players, the personnel they have on this offense isn't top offense all time. Whether they got the numbers or what, because it's a different game today. All right, you got to remember that. First of all, it's a different game than it was 25 years ago. Okay, 25 years ago, they ran the ball 30, 35 times a game. One running back got the ball 30, 35 times. Now, they pass the ball 50 times a game. So you can't use that to quantify what's the greatest offense. You can't use stats because it's a different game now and more stats are produced. But just use your eyes. In this Denver offense with finesse wide receivers all up and down the roster like Wes Welker and Eric Decker and those guys, they're great receivers, but they aren't players that I would say are that would be put on a list with some of the greatest receivers of all time. No Sean Moreno. He's a nice back, but he's not one of the greatest backs of all times. I took the liberty of writing down a couple of offenses that I thought were some of the greatest offenses of all time to debunk this, statistically the best offense of all time of the Denver Broncos. When you look at the Buffalo Bills with the K-Gun and Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly and Andre Reed and James Lofton and those guys at the end of his career, one of the best offenses of all time, better than this year's Denver Broncos offense. The Chargers back in the day with Wes Welker and Charlie Joyner and John Jefferson and Chuck Muncie and Dan Fouts at the quarterback, better offense than this year's Denver Broncos offense. The '98 Vikings with Randall Cunningham and who am I missing? Randy Moss and Chris Carter and those guys, and Smith at the running back. The Rams, the St. Louis Rams that went to 2 Super Bowls, win one with Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and those guys. Better offense than this year's Denver Broncos. I would take them before I took this year's Denver Broncos. The Cowboys of the 90s with Emmett and Troy and Michael Irvin. And the best offensive line of all time is a better offense in my mind. And even Peyton Manning, going back to the Colts. The teams that he had with the Colts, with Edgerrin James and Reggie Wayne and Harrison, those guys, and Dallas Clark even at the beginning of his career, that was a better offense than this year's Denver Broncos. Statistically, maybe not, but guess what? Use your eyes. They're better offenses in my opinions. I want to get your thoughts on that. And the last point I want to make about this year's Super Bowl is I think a lot of credit needs to go to Pete Carroll. Okay, and Chris Carter talked about this the day after, and I was already saying it in my mind, but I'm going to say it right now for this show. A lot of credit should go to Pete Carroll because he had the courage to do what's right. Okay, if you've ever played sports, you know how it works. The guy with the most fanfare, and in this case, in the NFL, the guy that's making the most money, usually plays. A lot of times the best athlete doesn't get on the field. The best player doesn't get on the field. In this case, with the chip stacked against him, Russell Wilson, a third-round quarterback, comes in, rookie quarterback, and is given the job by Pete Carroll, who had a lot of courage in doing this, over Matt Flynn, the high-priced free agent that the Seahawks had just signed in the offseason. I wish people that aren't familiar with sports and aren't really tied to sports understand how rare this is to what Pete Carroll did. I didn't think he'd do it. I never thought in a million years he'd do it. But you know what? Pete Carroll saw it in training camp, and he was like, the hell with who's getting paid the most. I'm going to play this guy. Now, it came to fruition 2 years later. They actually progressed in the playoffs last year under Russell Wilson's first year. But kudos to Pete Carroll for having the courage to doing what's right. And guess what? It paid off for you, bruh. It actually paid off for you. It paid off for you. It paid off for that organization. And it paid off for the Seattle Seahawks fans. Russell Wilson in his second year wins a Super Bowl. A lot of great guys, a lot of Hall of Famers that play the quarterback position don't have a Super Bowl, much less in their second year. So congratulations to Pete Carroll for having the courage to do what's right. Play the best player. And I think the Seahawks are going to be in a good position over that young man's career because they're going to re-sign him. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep all their other free agents, but they are going to keep Russell Wilson. He's the man in Seattle. You best believe that. All right, I want to get your thoughts on today's show and what you think about what I thought. You can email me, Doug@thedougstewartshow.com. You can also text me at 770-847-0536. Listen, the show is going great. Can't remember which episode this is. You'll see it on the listing. But continue to tell people about it. Pass the word. Share it. And the big thing is to subscribe to the show. I'm trying to get about 5,000 subscribers this time next month. All right? It's really big, man. I appreciate it. It's the Doug Stewart Show.